In the quiet hills of Bethlehem, a young boy named David spent his days tending to his father's flock of sheep. Life as a shepherd was far from glamorous. It was filled with long hours under the scorching sun, the chill of early morning winds, and the constant threat of wild animals that prowled the hills. Yet, within this humble and demanding life, David discovered lessons that would shape him into one of the most remarkable figures in history. From the earliest days, David learned courage. Defending a defenseless lamb from a prowling lion or a sneaky wolf was no small feat for a boy. Each encounter tested his bravery and sharpened his instincts, teaching him to face danger without hesitation. It was in these moments, alone in the wilderness, that David developed a fearless heart and a spirit unwilling to back down from challenges, qualities that would later define his extraordinary journey. But courage was only one part of his growth. Leadership, too, emerged quietly in the rolling pastures. While guiding his sheep safely to pastures and protecting them from harm, David learned responsibility, strategy, and foresight. He discovered the importance of planning ahead, observing his surroundings, and making quick decisions to ensure the survival of his flock. These skills, though simple at first glance, laid the foundation for a leader who would one day unite a nation. Compassion was perhaps the most profound lesson of all. Amidst the solitude of the hills, David developed a deep empathy for those weaker and more vulnerable. He understood what it meant to protect, to nurture, and to care without expecting anything in return. Each sheep was more than an animal. It was a life entrusted to him, teaching him the value of responsibility and the gentle strength of mercy. These early experiences planted the seeds of a heart that could both lead with authority and rule with kindness. But David's story is not just about a boy and his sheep. It is a story of potential hidden in the most ordinary places, a reminder that greatness often begins in humble circumstances. It shows us that even the simplest tasks, when approached with dedication, courage, and integrity, can prepare us for extraordinary destinies. The hills of Bethlehem were not just a backdrop, they were David's training ground, where character was forged in quiet moments of perseverance and care. As we dive deeper into David's journey, we will witness how these lessons from his early life shaped the man who would stand against giants, unite a divided kingdom, and leave a legacy that still inspires millions. If you are excited to explore this incredible journey of courage, leadership, and faith, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any part of David's inspiring story. Let us step together into the hills of Bethlehem and discover the boy who became a king. Even as David continued his days tending the sheep in the rolling hills of Bethlehem, a quiet destiny began to stir beyond the reaches of his father's fields. Samuel, the prophet of Israel, had been guided by God to the house of Jesse, tasked with choosing the next king of Israel from among Jesse's sons. But the older brothers, strong and imposing, were presented before Samuel, each seeming more fitting for the role than the last, yet each was passed over with a quiet, divine disapproval. It was a moment heavy with expectation. As Samuel, trained to see the heart beyond appearances, search for the one whom God had truly chosen, David, the youngest, still tending the sheep and largely unnoticed within his own household, was the last to be called. The older sons had the stature, the visible signs of leadership, and the confidence that commands attention. Yet none of these qualities mattered in the eyes of God. When David stepped forward, there was none of the grandiose presence one might expect of a future king. Instead, there was a quiet humility and a subtle strength forged through the simple, unglamorous duties of shepherding. The prophet looked upon him and, in that moment, saw what others could not: the heart of a man who would rise not through sheer force or appearance, but through courage, wisdom, and faith. Samuel anointed David with oil, a symbolic act of divine selection, marking him as chosen by God, a shepherd boy destined for a destiny far beyond the pasturelands. The scent of the oil lingered, but more than its fragrance, it carried with it a weighty promise, a whisper of the remarkable path that lay ahead. In that quiet anointment, David's life shifted in ways invisible to the casual observer, setting him on a trajectory that would challenge kings, conquer giants, and unify a divided nation. Yet, at that moment, he was still the boy of Bethlehem, familiar with the gentle rhythm of caring for his flock, accustomed to the solitude of the hills, and unaware of the trials and triumphs that awaited him. Despite being the youngest and least expected son, David's selection illustrated a principle that would echo throughout his life. Greatness often emerges from the most unlikely of places, and potential cannot always be measured by outward appearances or immediate achievements. His experience as a shepherd, long hours of responsibility, constant vigilance, and the cultivation of patience and empathy had quietly prepared him for the complexities of leadership. Each encounter with danger, each decision to protect and guide his flock, had been a rehearsal for the challenges he would face as a leader chosen by divine guidance. The humility he carried into the anointment was not a weakness but a profound strength, grounding him as he stepped into a role that demanded both wisdom and courage. In the days and weeks that followed, the reality of being God's chosen began to intertwine with the ordinary life of a boy in Bethlehem. While the older brothers may have dismissed him, unaware of the anointment that had taken place, David carried a quiet awareness that his life had been touched by something far greater than himself. It was a knowledge that would shape his interactions, his choices, and his resilience in the face of trials. The lessons of the past, the courage to confront wild beasts, the leadership required to guide a flock, and the compassion to care for creatures wholly dependent on him were no longer merely practical skills but divine preparations for a life of extraordinary responsibility. As David matured, the contrast between his outward simplicity and the depth of his potential became increasingly apparent. While others relied on physical might, wealth, or status to assert their influence, David's strength lay in the integrity of his heart, the clarity of his purpose, and the unwavering faith that had been nurtured in the quiet hills. Each step of his journey from shepherd to anointed one was a testament to the transformative power of faith and the unseen shaping of character through seemingly ordinary experiences. The same hands that once guided the sheep would eventually wield courage against formidable enemies, and the same heart that had learned mercy on the hillside would make judicious decisions that shaped the course of a nation. Even as the world remained largely unaware of the boy's anointment, God's choice set into motion events that would forever change Israel. David's story reminds us that destiny is not always apparent in the moment, that greatness is often nurtured in quiet, unseen ways, and that the potential for impact lies not in what others notice, but in the preparation, character, and purpose cultivated over time. The anointment was not the culmination, but the beginning of a remarkable journey, one that would test every lesson learned in the fields, challenge every ounce of courage and wisdom he had gained, and ultimately reveal the extraordinary power of a heart aligned with divine purpose. David, the youngest of Jesse's sons, a shepherd boy now marked by God's selection, would step into a life that demanded more than the ordinary, a life in which every skill, every act of courage, and every demonstration of compassion would serve a greater narrative. The story of his anointment is a story of unexpected potential recognized, of quiet strength revealed, and of a destiny that begins not in grandeur, but in the small, steadfast acts that shape character, heart, and future. As David stepped into the broader world beyond the gentle hills of Bethlehem, he found himself navigating the complexities of Saul's court, a place alive with political tension, ambition, and intrigue, yet also a realm where his unique gifts began to shine with undeniable clarity. Though still young, his reputation as a musician and a man of quiet courage spread quickly. For his harp playing had a profound effect on those around him, calming the troubled spirit of King Saul and earning him a place near the throne. It was not the grandeur of his birth or the imposing presence of his older brothers that opened doors for him, but the skill and sensitivity cultivated during his years in the fields. The ability to listen deeply, to respond with harmony, and to offer solace through music. Each note he played seemed to bridge the distance between hearts. And slowly, quietly, David became indispensable. A figure whose talents could soothe tension and inspire courage within the walls of a kingdom still vulnerable to internal strife and external threats. Yet it was not merely his artistry that earned David prominence. It was also his extraordinary bravery and unwavering faith that marked him as exceptional. The story of Goliath, the towering Philistine warrior whose presence alone had sent tremors of fear through the Israelite army, stands as a testament to the convergence of courage, faith, and preparation. While seasoned soldiers quaked at the giant's shadow, David, armed only with a sling and the confidence born from years of protecting his flock, stepped forward with a conviction that transcended fear. His words were not boastful but rooted in a profound trust in divine guidance, declaring that the Lord who had delivered him from the claws of lions and bears would deliver Israel from this seemingly insurmountable enemy. In the simplicity of his tools and the purity of his faith, David embodied a principle that would define his life. True strength often resides not in the weapons one wields, but in the courage and faith one carries. The confrontation itself, dramatic and decisive, revealed much more than skill with a sling. It unveiled the essence of David's character. He moved with deliberate confidence, eyes fixed not on the size of the foe but on the purpose and justice of the cause, demonstrating a wisdom far beyond his years. The single stone that struck Goliath down became an enduring symbol, not merely of a young man's audacity, but of the potency of preparation, faith, and the alignment of heart and purpose. The army that had once been paralyzed by fear erupted with renewed vigor, the morale of Israel restored. And David, now widely recognized, emerged as a hero whose actions spoke louder than words. His rise was neither abrupt nor accidental. It was the culmination of years of character building in the quiet hills, of musical expression that calmed kings and soldiers alike, and of an unwavering trust that he was part of a greater narrative beyond the immediate peril. As David's prominence in Saul's court grew, he navigated the delicate balance between favor and jealousy, skillfully managing relationships that were often fraught with tension. Saul, initially grateful for the young man's abilities, could not fully conceal a growing envy as David's victories and charisma earned him the admiration of the people. This envy, subtle at first, would later erupt into open hostility. Yet David's response was shaped by the same lessons learned as a shepherd and as a faithful servant of God: patience, humility, and discernment. Even in the face of danger, he avoided reckless confrontation, choosing instead to rely on strategy, prudence, and faith, demonstrating that true leadership is measured not by immediate triumphs, but by the steadiness of character in moments of both acclaim and adversity. Beyond his military feats, David's presence in the court highlighted the interplay of talent, reputation, and divine favor. He was no mere warrior. He was a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder that leadership often arises in unexpected ways, and that the impact of one individual can ripple outward to shape the destiny of an entire nation. Each act of bravery, every note played on his harp, every moment of composure under pressure reinforced the unique combination of gifts that had marked him from his earliest days. David's life illustrated the profound truth that preparation and opportunity, when guided by integrity and faith, converge to create moments of transformative significance. The narrative of David and Goliath, intertwined with his musical influence at Saul's court, became a cornerstone of his emerging legend, establishing him as both a spiritual and military figure whose influence extended beyond personal achievement to inspire a nation. Even as whispers of envy and the seeds of future conflict began to grow within the palace walls, David's character and actions remained steadfast, a testament to the enduring strength cultivated through a life of service, courage, and faith. Each encounter, each challenge, and each display of skill reinforced the lessons that had shaped him. From the vigilance required to protect sheep to the precision needed to strike a giant with a single stone, and from the sensitivity needed to soothe a troubled king to the wisdom required to navigate political intrigue with patience and discernment. In the unfolding chapters of his life, David's journey in Saul's court and his legendary confrontation with Goliath represent more than historical or biblical events. They symbolize the intersection of ordinary preparation with extraordinary opportunity, the triumph of faith over fear, and the emergence of a leader whose heart, courage, and wisdom would ultimately define a nation. His story demonstrates that prominence is earned not merely through birthright or strength, but through a combination of skill, character, and unwavering trust in a higher purpose, a message that continues to inspire across generations and circumstances. The rise of David within Saul's court, marked by his courage, wisdom, and musical talent, inevitably stirred feelings of jealousy in the king, whose insecurities deepened with each passing day. Saul, once comforted by the young man's harp and inspired by his victories, began to view David's growing popularity and undeniable favor with the people as a threat to his own reign. And this shift in perception set the stage for a period of profound trial and transformation for David. Forced into exile, David entered a world vastly different from the relative security and recognition he had known. A realm where survival depended not merely on skill with a sling or the ability to soothe a king with music, but on strategic thinking, loyalty, and the cultivation of moral and spiritual resilience. It was in this time of flight and uncertainty that David's leadership qualities matured, tempered by necessity and sharpened by experience. As he gathered a loyal following of men who recognized his vision, courage, and fairness, creating a community bound not by fear or coercion but by respect and shared purpose. Exile was not simply a physical journey through deserts, caves, and wilderness. It was a crucible that tested David's character and faith in ways that his earlier experiences could not. The constant threat of pursuit by Saul demanded vigilance and strategic acumen, forcing David to make decisions that balanced survival with morality, strength with restraint. On numerous occasions, he found himself in positions where he could have struck down Saul, the man who sought his life, yet he refrained, acting with a discipline and reverence that transcended immediate self-interest. These moments, charged with the tension between justice and mercy, revealed a deep integrity that would define David's legacy, illustrating that true leadership encompasses restraint and the courage to honor principles, even when circumstances encourage compromise. Each decision to spare Saul's life reinforced a reputation not only as a warrior and strategist but also as a man guided by a profound moral compass, demonstrating to his followers, and to history, that power tempered by virtue is far more enduring than power acquired through fear or violence. During these years in exile, David's inner life flourished alongside his external challenges, giving rise to some of his most enduring contributions to spiritual and literary culture through the composition of psalms. These writings, born in moments of both despair and reflection, captured the depth of human emotion: fear, hope, gratitude, longing, and trust in divine guidance and transformed personal struggle into collective wisdom that would resonate across generations. The Psalms are more than poetic expression. They are testimony to the human capacity to find meaning in adversity, to turn moments of vulnerability into sources of strength and inspiration. In the solitude of caves and the quiet of encampments, David refined his understanding of justice, mercy, and devotion, translating the intensity of his experiences into verses that would become central to religious thought and spiritual reflection. His songs of lament, praise, and petition reflected not only personal faith but also a keen insight into leadership, empathy, and the emotional and moral needs of a people under God's care, further cementing his identity as a leader whose authority extended beyond the battlefield. The exile years also provided a crucible for honing David's tactical and organizational skills, as he commanded groups of followers who depended on his judgment for survival. He learned to inspire loyalty not through fear or coercion, but through fairness, courage, and attention to the well-being of his men, carefully balancing discipline with compassion, teaching them to trust in his vision while instilling in them the principles that would guide them in battle and in life. Each skirmish and encounter with enemies became a lesson in patience, adaptability, and the responsible use of power, qualities that would later distinguish his kingship and establish the foundation for a kingdom rooted in justice and moral authority. The interplay between adversity and opportunity, threatened strategy, moral conviction and practical decision-making became a defining pattern in David's life, shaping a leader who was at once humble and resolute, reflective yet decisive. Throughout this period, David's capacity for empathy and his keen awareness of human nature became evident, as he navigated complex relationships within his band of followers and with the communities he encountered. His reputation for fairness and integrity drew people to him, creating networks of support that were based on mutual respect and shared values rather than caution, illustrating that leadership grounded in ethical conduct inspires loyalty more deeply than force ever could. These experiences in exile underscored the principle that true influence and authority grow from character, consistency, and the ability to balance ambition with conscience, a lesson David would carry forward into his eventual kingship. As time passed, the challenges of exile became the crucible in which David's legacy was forged, combining practical leadership skills with moral and spiritual depth. Each act of restraint, every strategic decision, and all moments of reflection and psalm composition contributed to a growing mastery of self, people, and purpose. David emerged from this period not merely as a survivor of political intrigue, but as a leader whose wisdom, courage, and devotion had been tested and proven under the most trying circumstances. The exile years, marked by both danger and inspiration, prepared him to lead with vision and integrity, demonstrating that adversity, when met with faith and steadfastness, can refine the qualities necessary to guide a nation, unify a people, and leave a lasting mark on history. In these years of wandering, composing, and leading with discernment, David's journey exemplified the transformation of a gifted young man into a figure of enduring moral and political authority, whose story continues to inspire reverence, admiration, and reflection. David's ascent to kingship was the culmination of years marked by courage, wisdom, and moral perseverance, and when he finally assumed the throne of Israel, his leadership transformed the nation in ways that resonated far beyond his lifetime. From the moment he was anointed king, David approached his responsibilities with a combination of strategic acumen, deep faith, and an unwavering commitment to justice, understanding that the authority he wielded was both a sacred trust and a tool for unifying a people long divided by tribal affiliations and political strife. He immediately set about consolidating the fragmented territories of Israel, not merely through conquest or displays of force, but by fostering alliances, exercising discernment in appointments, and demonstrating a leadership style that balanced firmness with compassion, showing his subjects that his vision extended beyond personal ambition to the welfare of the nation as a whole. The city of Jerusalem, which he established as both the political capital and the spiritual heart of Israel, became a symbol of unity, a tangible manifestation of his desire to intertwine governance with faith, and a central point around which national identity could coalesce. In choosing Jerusalem, David displayed both practical insight and symbolic foresight, recognizing the importance of a centralized location that could serve as a seat of administration while also accommodating the spiritual needs of a people who had long been guided by covenantal principles and devotion to God. David's military campaigns further solidified his reputation as a leader capable of both vision and action. He undertook a series of campaigns that expanded the boundaries of Israel, neutralized threats from neighboring kingdoms, and brought a sense of security to regions that had long endured conflict and instability. Yet his approach to warfare was never merely about conquest. It was infused with a keen understanding of the consequences of power and the responsibilities it entailed. Victories were celebrated, but David also sought to integrate newly acquired territories through diplomacy. Infrastructure development, and attention to the needs of local populations, reflecting a leadership philosophy that prioritized sustainable stability over temporary domination. The combination of military prowess and political sagacity allowed David to unify a previously fragmented kingdom, creating a sense of shared purpose among diverse tribes and forging a collective identity that would endure through generations. Justice and mercy were the hallmarks of David's reign, illustrating the balance that had been a defining feature of his life since his earliest days as a shepherd and his trials in exile. His decisions as king were guided not solely by expedience or political necessity, but by a commitment to ethical principles and a deep understanding of human complexity. In matters of law, he sought fairness and equity, often intervening personally to mediate disputes and ensure that the innocent were protected while the guilty faced consequences appropriate to their actions. At the same time, David recognized the value of mercy and the power of forgiveness, extending clemency to former adversaries who demonstrated repentance or loyalty, and setting a precedent that authority exercised with compassion could inspire loyalty and social cohesion more effectively than rule by fear. His ability to navigate the tension between justice and mercy became a defining feature of his kingship, establishing a legacy that intertwined moral integrity with political effectiveness, and demonstrating that the measure of a ruler lies not only in victories or conquests, but in the ethical and humanistic qualities they embody. Religion and spirituality were inseparable from David's vision for Israel, and his role in elevating Jerusalem as the central site of worship reinforced the integration of faith and governance. By bringing the Ark of the Covenant into the city and establishing it as the focal point of national devotion, David underscored the importance of a unified spiritual identity that could guide the nation's ethical and cultural values. This act was not merely ceremonial. It served to strengthen communal bonds, foster a shared sense of purpose, and legitimize the authority of the monarchy through divine association, illustrating David's understanding that leadership encompasses both practical governance and the cultivation of cultural and spiritual cohesion. The integration of religious observance with political administration reflected his long-standing relationship with faith, nurtured from his earliest experiences as a shepherd and refined during years of exile, trials, and reflection, and it ensured that his rule was anchored not only in human institutions but in enduring principles that transcended temporal power. David's personal qualities continued to shine amidst the demands of kingship, as he navigated complex political landscapes, maintained loyalty among his advisors and followers, and managed internal and external challenges with a combination of courage, wisdom, and diplomacy. He was a leader who inspired through example, demonstrating resilience, humility, and discernment in equal measure, and whose life story resonated with the broader themes of perseverance, moral fortitude, and visionary leadership. His reign was characterized by a delicate balancing of the needs of the state, the aspirations of the people, and the dictates of conscience and faith, showing that the exercise of authority, when guided by principle and insight, can elevate both a leader and a nation. Ultimately, David's unification of Israel, establishment of Jerusalem as the political and spiritual center, military successes, and judicious exercise of justice and mercy created a kingdom that was stronger, more cohesive, and more resilient than any before it. His reign exemplified the integration of practical leadership, moral integrity, and spiritual insight, setting standards that would influence generations of leaders and shaping a historical legacy that continues to captivate and inspire. Through his actions, David demonstrated that true leadership requires a synthesis of courage, wisdom, compassion, and vision, and that the enduring strength of a nation is built not merely upon its victories, but upon the character and principles of those who lead it. His story, woven from trials, triumphs, and unyielding faith, serves as a timeless testament to the transformative power of principled leadership and the enduring impact of a life dedicated to justice, unity, and the common good. As David's life drew toward its later years, it became evident that his journey was not defined solely by triumphs on the battlefield, political skill, or the consolidation of a kingdom, but also by the profound depth of his humanity, marked by moments of failure, personal sin, and complex family struggles. Despite the extraordinary nature of his early accomplishments, the courage that allowed a young shepherd to face a giant, the wisdom that guided him through exile, and the leadership that unified a nation, David's story is perhaps most compelling because it reflects the universal truths of imperfection and redemption. His personal sins, from misjudgments in leadership to grievous moral failings in his private life, remind us that even those chosen for greatness are not immune to error. Yet, what sets David apart is not the absence of wrongdoing, but the remarkable way in which he confronted his mistakes, sought forgiveness, and turned his shortcomings into opportunities for growth and reflection, demonstrating the power of sincere repentance and the transformative potential of faith when coupled with humility. Throughout his life, David's relationship with God remained a central guiding force, shaping his decisions, inspiring his artful compositions of the Psalms, and sustaining him through periods of intense personal and political upheaval. Even when faced with rebellion from his own children, betrayals by close allies, and the weight of choices that led to unintended consequences, David continually returned to the principles of obedience, devotion, and moral accountability. His ability to acknowledge his faults, to repent publicly, and to seek reconciliation reflects a model of leadership and character that extends beyond the realm of kingship into timeless lessons about resilience, ethical responsibility, and the importance of maintaining a moral compass amidst the pressures of power and authority. David's family life, complex and often tumultuous, added layers of challenge to his reign, illustrating that the burdens of leadership extend into the personal sphere, and that moral integrity must be cultivated not only in public actions, but in private relationships as well. The tensions among his children, including the tragic events involving Amnon, Absalom, and other members of his household, underscore the consequences of human flaws, the vulnerability inherent in family dynamics, and the necessity of compassionate yet principled guidance. Even amidst these painful episodes, David demonstrated a remarkable capacity for patience, measured judgment, and continued care for his family, striving to balance justice with mercy, discipline with love, and accountability with forgiveness. In doing, he embodied a model of leadership that recognized the intertwining of personal responsibility and public duty, showing that the ethical exercise of power must encompass both spheres of life. Ultimately, the enduring legacy of David is inseparable from the covenantal promises made by God, which he embraced with humility and unwavering devotion. The fulfillment of God's covenant through David's lineage, culminating in future generations that would inherit the spiritual and political foundations he laid, testifies to the lasting significance of his life, illustrating that the impact of a leader is measured not only by immediate achievements but by the enduring principles, values, and structures left behind. David's story resonates across time as a testament to the capacity for redemption, the power of faith, and the importance of aligning personal ambition with divine purpose, demonstrating that even amidst human frailty, a life committed to higher principles can yield transformative and lasting influence. David's Psalms, composed during moments of reflection, exile, and triumph, continue to echo his spiritual journey, serving as both personal expressions of faith and communal guides for generations who seek wisdom, solace, and inspiration. These sacred writings reveal the emotional depth, intellectual insight, and spiritual resilience that characterized his life, providing a lens through which his trials, victories, and repentance can be understood not simply as historical events, but as enduring lessons on the interplay between human imperfection, divine guidance, and moral courage. The Psalms also underscore the continuity of David's influence, demonstrating how a single life, even one marked by mistakes, can generate wisdom, comfort, and guidance that outlasts temporal achievements, continuing to inspire faith, reflection, and ethical living across centuries. As we reflect on David's journey, it becomes clear that the essence of his greatness lies in the synthesis of courage, leadership, faith, and repentance. His life teaches that true legacy is not measured solely by power, wealth, or fame, but by the capacity to confront one's failures, learn from them, and act in accordance with principles that honor both God and fellow human beings. His story illustrates the enduring relevance of moral accountability, the necessity of balancing justice with mercy, and the transformative potential of forgiveness, both received and extended, in shaping a life of significance and purpose. David's experiences serve as a reminder that while human frailty is inevitable, the conscious choice to live with integrity, faith, and compassion can leave an indelible mark on the world, inspiring future generations to strive for excellence not only in achievements but in character, resilience, and devotion. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of David, a story of triumphs, failures, faith, and redemption that continues to inspire people around the world. If you found this story meaningful and inspiring, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more captivating stories from history that illuminate timeless lessons and life-changing insights. Your support helps us bring more powerful narratives to life. And together, we can continue exploring the remarkable lives of individuals whose stories shape the course of history.